I'm glad to have you here. Hopefully you've been enjoying the series that we're doing. Right now we are involved in a series of Bible study lessons from the book of Daniel. And we are in chapter 2. We've done chapter 1, finished that. And now we're on the third video in chapter 2. And we've gone through Daniel chapter 2, verse 1 up through verse 19. We're going to be starting with verse 20 today. And just in case you haven't been here for the other videos, let me give you a quick recap of what's been happening in the chapter so you kind of are up to speed when we start reading this. You understand the background for it. In chapter 2, verse 1, King Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, has dreams. And he's concerned about those dreams. He wants to know what they mean because they're really concerning him. So he decides to call the experts into the expert dream interpreters, who are called the Chaldeans, some of the astrologers, some magicians, and some sorcerers, to come and help interpret. But he doesn't trust them. And so he decides to basically put them to a test to see if they really can interpret the dreams, because he's been feeling, apparently up until this time, that they really have just been making up stuff and not really telling him the truth about dreams. So his test is they have to first tell him what the dream was that he had, and then tell him the interpretation. So he's not going to tell them the dream. He's going to have them tell him the dream. And they say to him, basically, we can't do that. Nobody does that. You have to tell us the dream first. That's how it works. You tell us the dream, then we give you the interpretation. And he gets mad and he says, no. He says, you guys, I know that you're just going to lie to me. You're just going to make up stuff and not really tell me the true interpretation. If you can tell me the dream, then I'll know that you can tell me the interpretation. And if you don't tell me the dream, then I'm going to have you ripped from limb to limb, and I'm going to destroy all your homes. But if you can tell me the dream and the interpretation, then I'll make you rich. I'll make you wealthy. And they say again, we can't do it. We can't do it. Nobody can do this. And so he gets really, really mad. And he says, okay, everybody has to die. All the wise men have to die. And so he sends out the order, and then the captain of the guard goes, collects all the wise men. And Daniel, Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael are wise men in training, so to speak. And so they're part of the wise men, so they're being collected too. And Daniel asks the captain of the guard, wait, what's going on? Why are we being collected? What's happening? And the guard explains to him what happened, because Daniel and his three friends weren't there. And so he explains what happened. And then Daniel says, well, tell you what, let me go to the king and see if we can get some time to do this. So he goes to the king and asks the king, can we have a set time to come to you and give you the interpretation? Because we know a God, because the astrologers and the magicians have said, only the gods can tell you, but they don't dwell on with flesh. And their gods didn't dwell with flesh because their gods were fake. They weren't real. They weren't the true one and true and living God. Daniel knew the one true and living God who does dwell with flesh. And because he does dwell with flesh, he knew he could get an answer from him. So he tells the king, hey, set a time. I'll get an answer and I'll come back to you. And so Nebuchadnezzar gives him time. And Daniel gets his three friends, Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael, and says, hey guys, we got to seek God for mercy, because even though we deserve to die with everybody else, because God is the only one that's good and nobody else is good, so we really don't deserve anything good from him, but we don't want to die. So let's seek for him for mercy, because mercy means not getting what you deserve, and if we deserve to die, we don't want that. So let's seek him. And so they seek God, and God gives them what they're seeking for. He gives them the dream that Nebuchadnezzar has, and he gives them the interpretation. And that's where we ended last time. So Daniel has just gotten the interpretation, just gotten the dream, and he starts to just worship God for what he's done. And so this is where we pick up in verse 20. Daniel answered and said, and let me say too, when it says answered or replied in the Bible, it doesn't mean like we mean it in modern day English where somebody asks a question and then we give an answer. That it doesn't mean that. What it means in the Bible is simply saying he said. Answer and replies is another way of saying he said. It's not meaning that there was a question asked. He's just saying. So verse 20 again. Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise, for you have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we asked of you, for you have made it known to us, the king's matter. So here, Daniel, like I said, he's just praising God, just like anybody would. If God saves your life, if God saves you from anything bad from happening, and you're just going to be really, really happy and say, oh, thank you, God. And that's basically what he's saying, thank you. But there's a couple things in this I want to talk about, really one thing. But to set that thing up, first look at verse 20, where it says, Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever. And this part, to whom belong wisdom and might. So notice that wisdom belongs to God. It's his property. It's his thing. That means that nobody on the face of the planet has wisdom unless God gives it to him, because it's his property. Even if you don't know God, if you have wisdom, because in his grace, in his mercy, in his love for you, even though you don't know him and don't like him, he still loves you, so he gives you wisdom. But notice what he says. Notice that wisdom is God's property. Now I want to look at verse 21, because what I want to talk about is in verse 21, where it says he changes times and season, he removes kings and sets up kings. Notice this part. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. So let me talk about the best Bible study that I have ever done. And I've been a Christian for, goodness, 34 years now. 34 years I've been a Christian. And in that time, I've done a lot of Bible studies. And to this date, the very best, most beneficial Bible study I've ever done is a word study on the word wisdom. And if you don't know what a word study is where you take a word and you find as many of the places, hopefully all the places, but as many of the places in the Bible where that word appears, and you see what that verse has to say about that word, about that thing. And so when I was early as a Christian, probably my first year, maybe my second, but probably my first year as a Christian, I did a word study on the word wisdom. And to this day, 30 some odd years later, that is still the best Bible study, most beneficial Bible study I've ever done. And the reason why is because I wanted wisdom. I didn't want to be unwise. I didn't want to be foolish. I wanted to have wisdom. I wanted to know how to live life. I wanted to know how to live the life that God wanted me to live. And I don't mean that when people say that, they mean in the spiritual sense. How do I pray better? How do I read my Bible better? And that's included, definitely. But I'm not very smart. Some people say that I am. I'm really not. I make a lot of stupid mistakes. I do a lot of stupid things. I say a lot of stupid things. God is always having to pull my fat out of the fire because I did something stupid again. And so it was no different then. It was worse then. And so I said, I need wisdom. If I don't, I'm going to end up killing myself. I'm going to end up hurting myself just because I'm going to do something stupid. So I need some wisdom. And then not only that, but James in the 5th chapter, it says, if any man lacks wisdom, which I definitely did, it says, let him ask of God. So I said, okay, well, let me ask. Let me find out what God has to say in his word about wisdom. And so I created a list of I got this book called the Strong's Concordance. Some of you know it, some of you don't. The Strong's Concordance is Strong's Concordance. So strong like opposite of weak, like strong you have muscles. Strong's Concordance, one of the best Bible aids you will ever get, ever. And all that it is a listing of all the words in the Bible, and it shows you all the verses that word ever comes in. And then at the very back, which is very handy, it'll have you tell you the Hebrew or the Greek definition of that word. One of the best things you'll ever buy. And there's actually free ones available online as well, so just Google it, you'll find Strong's Concordance. So at that time I had a book, so I got the book, the Strong's Concordance, and I found all the places that wisdom appears. And as I was going through looking for wisdom, looking at all the verses that wisdom appears, I eventually got to, and I wasn't necessarily going in order of the Bible, in the sense I wasn't going from Genesis to Revelation. I was just kind of going all over the place. But I got to verse 21, where it says he gives wisdom to the wise. And all of a sudden, my excitement of trying to find wisdom and how to get it came to a screeching halt. It just went, and I got so frustrated with this verse. So frustrated. So when I read this verse now, I kind of chuckle and laugh because of my experience with this verse. And I got so frustrated. And you might say, why would you get frustrated about this verse? What would frustrate you about this verse? So let me explain, because this is exactly what went through my head. So let me tell you what went through my head. Have you ever had to go look for a job? And it's a job, and you thought, hey, look, I want to look for this job, I want to work in this kind of industry, in this kind of field, whatever kind of job it is. And you don't have any experience in that field. But you figure, hey, no problem. I'll get an entry level job, and I'll get the experience. I'll just go into entry level, fine. But then you start looking at all the job postings for the field you want to get an entry level position in, and every single job posting says something like must have X amount of experience. Maybe 6 months of experience, maybe a year experience, maybe 3 months of experience, but every single entry-level position, this is entry-level, just to get started, tells you you've already got to have experience to get this job. And then you get frustrated, because I went through this, looking for jobs. And then you get frustrated, it's like, wait a minute. How can I get the experience if I don't have the job? But you're telling me I can't get the job without experience. But I don't have experience, so I can't get the job. How do I get experience then? Because I can't ever get the job. So it's frustrating. Oh my goodness, it is so frustrating. It makes you so mad. It's like, And this verse was like that for me. Because here I was coming to the scripture with no wisdom. Knowing I had no wisdom. Looking for wisdom, thinking, okay, I'm going to apply for the job of wisdom, to get wisdom. And this verse says to me, you have to have prior experience before you can get the job. It says he gives wisdom to the wise. So if you want to get wisdom, you already have to be wise. And I was like, oh my goodness, really? This is the job hunting situation all over again, except it's with wisdom. How can I ever get wisdom then? How can I ever be wise? So I'm going to spend a whole life being foolish, making stupid mistakes, doing stupid things, getting myself into the stupidest of trouble, and there's no remedy? There's no help? This verse, oh my goodness, it frustrated me so much. I'm even feeling the frustration again now. I'm fighting back the tears that I had at that moment when I saw this verse. This verse just slammed the door shut on me. You can never have wisdom because you'll never be wise. Because in order to be wise, you already have to have wisdom. Well, you can't get wisdom, so you'll never be wise. And I was so frustrated. Oh my goodness. And so even though I was frustrated, undaunted, I said, okay, I'm going to continue the rest of the word study, even though now I know I'll never have wisdom. I know now I'll never get wisdom. It's not possible because I can't be. I guess you have to be born wise to get it. I wasn't born wise, so I'll never get it. So I just continued on with the study. And eventually I got to the verse that set me free. And the verse that set me free was Psalms 111 and 10. Psalms 111 and 10, it says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. All those who practice it have good understanding. I read this verse, Psalms 111 and 10, and I was like, my mind was blown. And I was like, oh, here's my answer. Because it tells me the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. So you're telling me, so I already read that to get wisdom, I have to be wise. So I have to have wisdom. But you're giving me a starting point now with Psalms 111 and 10. You're giving me a starting point. You're telling me how without experience I can get into the experience. If I have the fear of the Lord, that's the starting point of wisdom. It's not that you get all wisdom, but it's like you get the seed of it, you get the root of it, and now it can grow from there. And if I could, so I looked at that, it's like, oh, the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. I can do that. I was so happy. I was so excited because it's like I know what the fear of the Lord is. The fear of the Lord is the reverence of the Lord. Living a life, doing your best to live a life that's pleasing to Him. It means also having a heart that's warm and fuzzy toward Him, having a heart that loves Him and adores. It means that too, but that has to come out into your practical, everyday, daily life to where you're living a life that's pleasing to Him, living a life that makes Him happy, living a life that makes Him joyful. It's like, I can do that. I can do that. So if I do that, I'll be starting on the road to wisdom, which means I'll have the beginning of wisdom. Because I have the beginning of wisdom, which is a small seed and small amount, I can take that small amount now and give it to God. And verse 21 says that the small amount that I'm showing to Him as proof that I have something, He will add to that something, and He'll make it bigger. And then I can take that He's given me and show it back to Him, and He'll make it even bigger. And I can just keep on doing that. I can keep on showing Him the wisdom that He gave me, and He'll give me more. Then I'll show Him that, and He'll give me more than that. I was so happy. I can become wise now. I can live a life of wisdom and not make stupid mistakes, not do stupid things. And I can grow in it, because as much as as wise as you get, you'll still do some stupid things here and there, but as you grow in wisdom, they'll become less and less and less and less, because your wisdom's becoming more and more and more and more. And I was like, oh my goodness. Psalms 111:10 is the solution to my problem. It's how I get the experience even though I don't have experience. The fear of the Lord. And not only Psalms 111 and 10, but also Proverbs 9 and 10 says the same thing. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. So Proverbs 9:10 and Psalms 111:10 gave me the solution to Daniel 2:21, to where, wow, I want to become wise. I want to get wisdom. I want to be pleasing to God. The way that I start on that road is to fear Him, is to reverence Him and love Him. And with having that, I can move on into wisdom. So I'll tell you right now, right here, if you want wisdom, you really want wisdom. Because if you don't have the fear of the Lord, you really don't have wisdom. You'll end up making a lot of stupid mistakes, a lot of bad things. And some things you'll do, and they'll cause problems, but you don't even know that you did the stupid thing. You just know you got the problems. You're trying to figure out where the problems come from. It's because you're making a lot of unwise choices, doing a lot of unwise things that the fear of the Lord would help you to see, and you'd be able to grow in that wisdom and live a life that makes you happy and makes God happy. So if you lack wisdom, yeah, James says, let him ask of God. But what Daniel is saying is, when you come to God, you better already have wisdom, or you're not going to get it, because it's His property and He already wants to see that you have it. Well, how do you get it? You start reverencing Him. You start loving Him. You start fearing Him. And that's why that Bible study 30 some odd years ago remains the best Bible study I've ever done to this day, because it unlocked for me the path of wisdom. It unlocked for me the path of growing in my relationship and my desire and my love for God and my ability to please Him more. I still do a lot of stupid things. I mean, you can ask my wife. My wife will tell you, oh my God, yes, he does stupid things. My kids will tell you, oh my goodness, yeah, he does stupid things. But it's way less than I did before. Much, much less, and hopefully getting even less, because of that Bible study, because I now know what wisdom is, and I know what the beginning of wisdom is, and I know how to present it before God to get more from Him. So if you lack wisdom, first, make sure you're reverencing God. If you're reverencing God, go to Him and say, okay, Lord, I have the beginning of wisdom. Can I please have more? I want to live a life pleasing to You. I want to live a life that's joyful and happy. If you don't have wisdom, and if you don't have the fear of the Lord, then you come before God and say, Lord, help me to reverence you more. Help me to fear you more. Because he'll give you that really in a heartbeat. And then once he starts giving that in your heart, because even asking that question, asking that request for him is an act of reverence. And even in that moment that you're starting to ask, he will start giving you wisdom right there, because that is the wisest thing to do, is to ask him for reverence for his name and for him. So again, hopefully this study helped unlock for you what you need to do. And again, I know some of you might be saying, you know what? I thought these Bible studies were supposed to be about Daniel. You keep talking about a lot of things that really aren't about Daniel. They're about other things. They're about the Christian life. Exactly. You're catching on. I'm talking about Daniel, and I do get you up to speed on Daniel. But everything was written for us to learn how to live a life that's pleasing to God. And the Bible study lessons that we're going through are to do just that. We're using Daniel as a springboard for that, but we're definitely talking about Daniel too. But we're talking about the lessons that we need to know to be pleasing from God. As we go through Daniel, we'll get deeper and more focused on Daniel himself and the things that are in Daniel. But even then, we will talk about the things that make us pleasing to God. Because if you don't live a life pleasing to God, what use is knowing all the other stuff? Okay? So hopefully this lesson was beneficial to you. Hopefully you got something out of it. Hope you learned how to be wise and how to get true wisdom, and that it can lead you on in the path that you want to be in and that you need to be in before God. All right, take care and enjoy yourself. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.